Hi, we're here on D1.3, which is Mutations in Gene Editing for the HL students, reminding the two guiding questions that you must keep along when it comes to this subject. How do gene mutations occur, and what are the consequences of gene mutation? In this particular video, we're going to talk about gene knockout, which is basically a technique to investigate if there's a functioning gene that you want to change its way because it's basically imperative, or, of course, it's actually working. Then the use of the CRISPR sequence and the enzyme Cas9 in order to delete the gene or to edit a gene or to insert a gene and so forth. We're also going to talk about hypotheses when it comes to conservative and the highly conservative genes throughout evolution. We're going to look at some examples of that. So by the end of this video, you're going to be able to outline the gene knockout as a technique for investigating the functions of genes by changing it to an operative state. Explain the use of CRISPR sequences as well as the enzyme Cas9 in gene editing, and describe the hypothesis for conserved or highly conserved sequences in genes. So with that, let's start first by understanding what does the CRISPR is for. So the CRISPR is targeting a certain section of DNA, and what is it trying to do is one thing. Maybe it's going to treat a genetic disease, or it wants to turn a crop into becoming resistant to any kind of disease, or you want to engineer a new organism by giving them some kind of new traits. So CRISPR and gene knockout, these are two powerful techniques that are being used now to manipulate the genes. Now, when we talk about genetic engineering, we're basically talking about changing something in the DNA of an organism. And it can be by giving them new traits, it can be by getting rid of some bad traits, or sometimes just modifying a trait into getting something a little bit more better or a little bit less of a disease. So, when it comes to the gene knockout technique, this is basically you picking a specific gene inside the DNA, and what you're going to do is you're going to remove or change it. So the expression can be changed completely, prevented it from it expressing or changing the way it's expressed forever. An example of that is the P53. P means for protein. So P53 is an example of a gene that it works out in making sure that the cells are not dividing uncontrollably. So whenever the P53 gene is active, functioning, it's great. There is no such thing as any tumors coming out. There's no such thing as that so much mitosis happening all at once. However, if P53 is actually inactive, that means it's not expressing, it's not working, the cells start to divide crazy, and then that leads to tumor and eventually cancer. So they have noticed that by taking that P53 out of a mouse, the mouse eventually stop having cancer. So another one is this library of knockout organisms. Now, you can find a lot about these knockouts happening with mouses and zebrafish. And in that library, you're going to see that a lot of genes have been taken or knocked out from these organisms. Now, here is showing you a picture of what it looks like a CRISPR with the enzyme Cas9. So right here, you have the purple section. This purple is basically an enzyme that is located in a certain section of your DNA. Now, if you see this red string here, basically this is the DNA, the two strands of the DNA. Obviously, the enzyme is going to go to a specific section of the DNA, and it's going to open up the two strands. Now, in that two strands, eventually what's going to happen is they're going to cut a certain point. That means the Cas9 enzyme is going to cut an area that has a gene or an area of sequence that they don't want to be there. So they cut it off, and then they have the option, if they want, is to add a DNA gene from another species into it. Or, of course, in the end, they can change some kind of sequence and then edit their own genes themselves. So these usually can be done in humans, in mice, or even just specifically in one cell. So this is what CRISPR usually looks like. So when we say the CRISPR-Cas9 system, it includes the enzyme Cas9, which goes to a specific part of the DNA and the specific chromosome in order to cut something out. The CRISPR, in the other case, this is a region of the DNA that is found in the bacteria. And what does the CRISPR usually have? They have a very short, repeated sequence, and this sequence is very unique, spacer sequence. So usually they are there in order to deal with any kind of virus DNA that is coming as a foreigner into the bacteria. So bacteria are the ones who usually use this CRISPR-9 system. Now, how do they do that? It's their way of self-defense. Whenever there's a virus that wants to attack a bacteria, and the virus always wants to put some kind of DNA inside of that bacteria, the bacteria has a way of saying, I'm going to tag you. So next time you try to attack me, I know exactly what is the sequence of your DNA. So that's what the CRISPR-Cas9 does when it comes to bacteria. So usually there will be like a short segment of foreign DNA, right? The virus is going to try to put a little bit of its piece of DNA inside the bacteria into the bacteria's DNA. And in there, what happens? They're going to place them in a place called spacer. So that spacer will be like a molecular record. That means the bacteria will consider these spacers that are found in its DNA as a place to say, I know what the foreign DNA looks like. So if they ever attack me again, I will know how to stop them. So every time a new virus is coming with its DNA, the bacteria will look to see the sequence of that DNA virus, and then they're going to try to see if that matches with any of the spacers that they have. And if it does match, then obviously they know exactly how to attack. So like here, the foreign DNA appears and matches the CRISPR spacer, and the short RNA molecule identifies and binds to a specific virus sequence. So what happens? That short RNA is going to tell the Cas9, which is an endonuclease. Endonuclease means it's cutting in the inside. Enzyme here to target that DNA. So in this process, what's going to happen? The enzyme is going to cut the DNA, and that way results in taking off whatever that DNA that it didn't want and make sure to repair the own bacterial DNA. So the use of this CRISPR-Cas9 mechanism is done by the bacteria, but now the scientists knowing this CRISPR-Cas9, it says, okay, you know what? Why don't we use this system too for our benefits? So what they do is they find a specific type of Cas9 DNA sequence that he wants, and he will work on it. So they create this single guide RNA, which is known as sgRNA right here. And that sRNA will target a specific gene that you want to do modification. So remember, the RNA is created to target a specific gene. And what are you going to do with that gene? You're going to modify it or delete. So that sgRNA molecule, again, will bind to a DNA. And once the sgRNA binds to DNA, it will call the Cas9 enzyme to go to that location and then does the cutting. And when it does the cutting, you take off the two sides of the strand of the DNA. So then that's why we say double-strand break, is because you're taking the two pieces from it out. Now, when it does that, when it cuts that certain location of the DNA, you can modify the DNA by adding a gene or taking a gene. So here's a picture to show you what it looks like. So here again, you have this section here, the big pink here, that's the enzyme Cas9. You have here the sequence of the DNA, and you can see the DNA has been open on the two sides. And you have the single guide mRNA right here, which is showing the location of where the DNA he wants the Cas9 to cut. So that's showing, again, the single guide RNA will show the Cas9 here where exactly it wants to cut. And it's right here. It shows. You can see the yellow shows the pink section where you want to cut. So you can see it did the double DNA break here, right? Because it took from the two strands it cut. Now, it has two options. It can go ahead and delete the gene, or it can insert a gene. It's up to him. So it's delete this guy, or again, add a new sequence to the gene. So that's a way to modify or delete the gene by using the CRISPR idea. Now, here are some of the applications of the CRISPR-Cas9 system that we are using now. One of them is gene therapy. Obviously, we're trying to treat some genetic disorders by manipulating the gene sequence, and that way they stop the disease. Another one is through crop breeding, in which we are modifying the genes that express traits in these crops, making them give more crop yield, more nutrition content, and making them more resistant to any kind of disease. Another one is disease modeling, which of course, during specific mutations or deletions that happen in the animals, they can actually learn about how these diseases arise and how we can prevent for the future. And then, of course, there is the genetic engineering of microorganisms. This, again, you're understanding more about bacteria, yeast, and microorganisms, and be able to change some of their genes, because if we change their genes, we are able to manipulate them to do different things. And sometimes we can use that in the pharmacy, biofuels, and even enzymes. However, there's an ethical part to this CRISPR-Cas9, is that sometimes the ethical part is like we're trying to basically edit human embryos and make the embryos look like what we want, with the whatever color that we want, the hair, the eyes, and that can be a little bit ethical. And of course, sometimes we're trying to change the entire genetic of a species. So these are ethical issues that we have to look into when we're working with CRISPRs. Now, one last thing we got to talk about is about sequences of DNA that has been conserved in a long period. Whenever we say conserved sequence, it's just a sequence of DNA strands that hasn't much been changed in a group or species. When you say highly conserved species, they have similar sequence that haven't been changed in the entire evolution. That means in a very, very long period of time. Now, we have this hypothesis, which is known as Foster constraints, which means that because of selective pressure, any kind of mutations that happens in a gene will not survive. They eventually will die. right? The selective pressure will not allow you to stay with that kind of mutation. It says, hey, you mutated, now you're weakened, you're dead. So they believe that when it comes to these very high conserved genes, they are still alive and they're still conserved. And that means they are based out there. It must be that they survive all the selective pressure. And if they survive all the selective pressure, what does that mean? That means they probably do mutations. Because as we said here, if there was mutations, the selective pressure says you cannot survive, you're dead. But for us to have these highly conserved genes that are still alive and they are very much conserved, it must be throughout this entire period of evolution, there was no mutations. There was minimum of that in order for them to survive such a selective pressure. So examples of this highly conserved sequence of genes that we're talking about, it is the HB gene, which creates the hemoglobin alpha chain. Another one is that we can look at the DNA, the mRNA, as well as the amino acid sequence and start to compare them between species to see if there was any kind of mutations, to see if any kind of sequence was conserved. So this is it for this section on mutation gene editing. We did talk about the outline, how gene knocked out is. We also talk about the CRISP sequence as well as the Cas9 and how they try to take off a DNA gene and put a gene or modify the gene. And we also talk about describing the hypothesis of conserved and highly conserved sequences and genes. So this is it for this video. On the next video, we're doing D2.1, which is cells and nuclear divisions. But until then, remember, with IB, you can get the 7. I'll see you next video. Take care.